book, and we're going to start with some inspirational messages from two of the other books.
Yeah, so I'm going to be reading a few out of all of these, this being the fourth book of my Search for Truth series, A Rude Awakening. And then these two are basically collections that I put together of my inspirational messages that I have on my Facebook and my website every day. One from 2016. We'll read a few selections out of that, and we'll have a nice little question and answer comment period afterwards. Hopefully have some conversation here. So just get started here. All right, and when I read these, I'm going to read the dates on them, and it's funny, I noticed that even though some of these were written several years ago, they still have correspondence to what's going on now, and it's just kind of eerie sometimes when you write something and 3 years later. So, just part of the fun, I guess. Okay, so the first one, November 21st, 2014. While it is the elites who keep us down by making us think we're powerless, it is us who eternalizes it, making the block our own. The more we show our interconnectedness, the more powerful we become, and the more the elite's power shows itself for the illusion it really is. On to the next one here.
It's alright. No, don't trip, man.
Show must go on. Well, at least there's no guy dancing in his underwear outside that window this time.
It's too cold.
It wasn't my choice. No. At least not this early. Okay, so November 26, 2014. If people understood what united we stand and divided we fall really means, prejudice, subjugation, and persecution would not exist. The thought that a specific group is the problem wouldn't enter our thought process because we realize most of the world's problems are extensions of ourselves. Next one. December 19th, 2014. We get bombarded with messages telling us we're not watching the right shows, wearing the right clothes, eating the right foods, hanging out with the right people, setting the right goals, dreaming the right dreams, believing in the right religion, or that we're not good, strong, or smart enough. Is this the truth? Or are our minds playing tricks on us? Will we let others determine what, why, where, and how we should be, or will we decide ourselves? Either way, we've made a choice. Next one, Christmas Day 2014. And I think this is the one that really got me, that really felt like it had kind of correspondence to, unfortunately, probably all too often these days. This past year has certainly been a challenge, whether it was wars, shootings, the economy, or ever-widening wealth, philosophical, religious, and political divisions. Major changes afoot, and we can consciously evolve by using advances to bring us closer together. We can choose to resist change by fighting tooth and nail to keep things the way they've always been, which pulls us farther apart. What makes us human brings us closer together. This realization does not force revolution, it breeds evolution. Two more out of this book. Alright, so this one's short and sweet, January 2nd, 2015. If we don't know what we have until it's gone, how can we flip that so we know what we have while it's still around? One word, gratitude.
Yes.
And then the last one from my 2015 book here, January 10th. If we want to take divisiveness out of our politics, we need to take divisiveness out of our lives. If we want to inject thoughtfulness, accountability, and humanism into our politics, we need to inject thoughtfulness, accountability, and humanism into our lives. We create politics and politicians. They don't create us. If we want to change our political system, we must change ourselves. That's the 2014-15 book, and also took some nice pictures of the river on the back, and I'll read the kind of back paragraph that's on it as well. It's a section out of part of one of them. Feeding our soul is just as important as feeding our body. If our goal in life is to be truly satisfied, let's satisfy more than just our physical body, but our entire being. Because that's how it's really sustainable. Okay, so first one out of the 2016 book here. I got a few. Figure I'll read a few of these. What the heck? January 2nd. If the scales of justice are lopsided one way or another, does either side receive justice? If a rich person gets away with running somebody over and killing them while drunk, and a poor person gets convicted of manslaughter, does either receive justice? If a police officer gets away with shooting somebody of one race because they were scared, but goes to prison for shooting somebody of another race, even though the circumstances were exactly the same, does either receive justice? We have major race and class issues that have been around since the beginning of time. With that said, if we ever hope to get past them, criminal penalties must be the same no matter the color of somebody's skin or how much money is in their bank account. Accountability through humanism is how we level the playing field and clear the roadblocks that prevent us from evolving. None of us have justice until we all have justice. None of us are accountable until we're all accountable. January 5th. If we're told that our guns are being taken away but no evidence exists beyond anecdotes, where does that leave us? If we're told that we're being overrun by radical Muslim terrorists when statistics show more people are killed by radical Christian terrorists, where does that leave us? If we're told that so many people are flooding over the Mexican border that we need to build a wall, when statistics show most illegal immigration takes place by people from Europe and Asia overstaying their visas, where does that leave us? You know where I'm going with this. We're told a lot of crazy crap about the threats we face, most of the time to push an agenda. We must realize that fear and racism clouds our critical thinking, causing us to blindly follow whoever yells the loudest. Our biggest threat isn't guns, terrorists, or immigrants. It's us not asking critical questions. January 12th. If self-hate turns into jealousy, does jealousy turn into hate of others? If hate of others turns into forming a group based on that hate, does that group use religion to justify its actions? Does using a religious doctrine to justify a hate group's actions prove that every religion has its fundamentalists? No religion is free from crazies, and no religion has more than the other. If somebody says one religion breeds crazy while another simply maintains it, that person is feeding into the false narrative that creates fundamentalists in the first place. How do we stop fundamentalists from screaming so loud that we can't hear our own critical thinking skills? We stop hating ourselves. How do we do that? We focus on what we love and what we have, instead of what we hate and what we don't have. If nobody is free from self-hate, nobody is free from fundamentalism. To be who we really are, we have to see people for who they really are. January 15th. If the most dangerously violent tool of all mankind is a pen, why all the saber rattling with guns, bombs, and indiscriminate black ops? Why threaten a country with carpet bombing when a much more dangerous weapon comes in a 10-pack for $2? Is the ignorance and self-importance these violence purveyors peddle nothing more than a cover for how powerful a pen really is? We've all heard that the pen is mightier than the sword, which you'd think would make more people use one. You'd think more people would use their words to articulate a problem before articulating a solution. Some of us are lazy when we pick up a gun instead of a pen and make the changes we seek. We might think beating our enemies into oblivion is easier than using our words. Is murder really easier than talking? We'll never succeed in life if we always take the easy way out. Great change comes with great effort. So a couple more out of here. January 22nd. If a smiling blue sky is all we see, are we ignoring everything else? If positive thoughts of the beauty surrounding us are the first thing on our mind, are we deleting all others? Are we changing our perceptions so as to not blind ourselves, but to truly see life and what's important? Some of us get blinded by the light and we only see what's positive and bright because it gives us the false impression that it's the only thing that exists. When something bad does happen, it might cause us to go into crisis mode because we don't know how to handle it. Some of us choose positivity, realizing it's not sunshine and roses all the time. When we breathe beauty into our soul, it carries us through the bad times to become shorter and leave a smaller footprint. How we perceive life is how we live it. We just have to ask ourselves what produces the best results. Oh, I guess two more. Got time, right? All right, March 18th.
Shut this place down.
Yeah, sounds good to me. If we're America the Beautiful like we claim, do we remember how to crown that good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea? Does our brotherhood only include people who think, look, and act like us? Do we comprehend the full definition of brotherhood, which includes brothers, sisters, animals, and all other living things on the earth? We can claim all day that we're accepting of people, and as long as somebody has the courage and determination, their mind can help them achieve anything. However, if our actions are utterly detrimental because we believe life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness only applies to us, and not those weird, stinky people with those strange beliefs, then we have no idea what brotherhood really means. We prove that we cherish brotherhood with our fellow man by not just talking the talk, but walking the walk. We stay American by continually taking steps forward. One more out of this one. May 12th. If we don't know where we're going until we get there, is there a guidebook to point us in the right direction? Is this guidebook the same for all 7 billion people on the earth? Are these infinite guidebooks written in infinite languages, but whose end goals are all pretty much the same? Many of us go through the same issues when trying to bring ourselves joy and fulfillment. We don't know where or what this joy and fulfillment is. We just know that we want it yesterday. This is when we look for signs, symbols, guides, and sages. They could come in the form of the Bible, the Torah, the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, the Book of the Dead, the unwritten book of the road, or anything written, unwritten, spoken, or implied that we encounter. Once we realize it doesn't matter what reaches us or in what form, just that we're reached, we'll see that putting somebody down for what they believe in is like saying we deserve inner joy more than them because our path is better. In the end, it doesn't matter how we find our way to inner joy, just that we do, and we help others find their way as well. As long as we stay open, we'll find our way. Excuse me. So those are the collections of the from the Mind of Critic. And so now I'll read a few sections out of the new novel, the newest sequel to my Search for Truth series, A Rude Awakening. I just wanted to give a quick kind of refresher on how the series is going, or kind of what brought us up to this point. My main character, Jason, he gets the perfect job in New York, this big-time political magazine, ends up investigating, basically thrown into the halls of power with all the money and influence at his fingertips. He uncovers a scheme dealing with illegal immigration and insider trading. Takes down a corrupt congressman, and then it just kind of snowballs from there. And by the end of the book, they end up taking down the president. The second book kind of starts when they're on the run. They follow the secret postcard to Cuba. and they uncover this this special device that's to bring water to the entire world, to immediately desalinate water from salt water into fresh water, and using, you know, pipeline designs that already exist to pipe it from the East Coast to the West Coast. Now, granted, I'm not a science person. I'm an idea person, I guess. So I don't know the technological way that this would actually happen, but, you know, you got to throw it out there. So, and so the, excuse me, losing my voice already. The third book basically deals with private armies and militias, and it's based in Jerusalem. Deals with the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, pretty much because whenever I thought of private armies and militias, it always led back to the Mossad for me, and it just deals with a lot of kind of personal issues that I've dealt with and thought about for a long time. Which brings us to the new book. This one basically is my way of channeling kind of what's going on right now, as is all of my writing, but this one in particular, based in the South, deals with a lot of racial issues and social engineering. They elect a new president, moves the capital to Alabama. Draw your own conclusions on what I'm channeling in the current climate. But just like anybody, you know, I gotta find a way to not go insane. So I'm gonna read this first section, and basically the end of the third book ends where they're kind of celebrating how they stopped this big missile attack, and they're back at their house. Their cabin in Humboldt, kind of put that into the story too. And the book ends with Christina, who is Jason's girlfriend and one of the main characters in the book, also basically passes out from drinking, you know, drinking a glass of water, but falls on the ground, poisoned or something. And so this book kind of starts with him taking Christina to the hospital and kind of get her checked out. And so this first section I'm going to read is he's brought Christina to the hospital after she collapsed, but he walks out confused and scared because he finds out she's got abducted to a secret lab for testing. Okay. The stars and bars were a rallying cry of a bygone generation. The fact that the symbol inexplicably returned in defiance of expanding human rights would make the founders roll over in their graves. Well, not roll over in their graves as much as wonder if the defiance evolved from them. Did the freedom laid out in the Constitution allow for such free will and thought that eventually the strongest and smartest would vacuum up all the power? The idea that the rebel flag wasn't used since the Civil War and was only reintroduced during the 60s as a response to free-thinking hippies didn't stop some from claiming a pride based on not asking questions. What's going on in this country when I can't even walk down the street without getting harassed? Vehemently spouted a 30-something white working-class voter. He never realized he'd been voting against his own interests for years. He railed against immigrants, how nothing is American-made, all the while wearing a shirt from China, pants from the Middle East, and earbuds blaring music which originated in a West African jungle. Do you ever think you might be getting harassed because of your Confederate flag hat or your Make America Great Again t-shirt? Responded Jason with sincere honesty. His passion rose exponentially once he realized the greatest changes were yet to come. He also knew things were going to get dramatically worse before positive changes had a chance to be implemented. Jason had no idea what to do about Christina. He'd follow her to the ends of the earth, but figured outside the hospital amongst the original group of protesters was a place to start. The fact that Jason randomly began talking to somebody whose girlfriend was abducted under similar circumstances as Christina's only made the synchronicity burn brighter. We have to find them. The note purposely left on Christina's bed said they went to Alabama. Why would they go there? Jason blasted.
I mean, it's like
The dark clouds in the sky were readying for an immeasurable storm, evidenced by the eerie warmness of the air. Even though the moon shined its lunar loveliness, was it enough to invigorate people's true character? Is that the problem with America, Jason thought? I could think of a few reasons they'd go to Alabama, countered the 30-something salt crystal of the earth. His long brown hair would identify him as a hippie, and so would the skunky green essence protruding from his pores. He was similar to a million people Jason knew years before, which made him seem unthreatening. Just one more person on a journey to find whatever it was the human species was collectively looking for. I know a few people there. I could make some calls. I'm scared. The note said they'd be conducting tests. What would they be testing? They could be testing all sorts of things. They kind of have a history of testing unwilling subjects, or those they view as inferior. They're trying to advance what they believe is evolution. My name is Gary, by the way. Well, Gary, I'm Jason. I'd say let's head to the redneck capital of the redneck universe, but since you're wearing that hat, you might not see it that way, Jason cajoled. He knew humor was useful for building consciousness, but also for escaping darkness. You're right, I don't see it that way. However, you seem like a real person who wants to do good for real people. All of us have been glued to the election around the corner. It has divided us like never before. People have forgotten what makes us human. Gary warmly replied. He had liberal friends before. His most engaging and interesting conversations were with people on the opposite side of the aisle. Just standing near Jason made Gary's passion for getting back to what makes us human and how we treat each other viewable by a blind man. Gary understood as much as anybody how ego made everything go haywire. Gary, I think we're going to get along just fine. If I can befriend a Palestinian, I can befriend a redneck, Jason artfully deduced. What? Since when did Palestinians have anything to do with this? Gary wondered. Was this random guy he met at a hospital protest somebody he could work with? If their partnership fully formed, could they hold it up as an example to the world that everyone can come together, no matter how divided they become? That, my friend, is a story for another day, Jason deflected. He'd tell Gary that story. He just had to find the right time. Priorities are funny because they make life happen out of sequence. Kind of like enjoying a drink and smoke with your girlfriend before she gets poisoned by water thought to be safe. Then when she's brought to the hospital, some crazy super drug is tested on her. What the hell, Jason thought. Here we go again. Well, we have plenty of time to talk. It'll take 3 days to drive there. We could take my car. It's a lifted pickup over there. Gary pointed to the truck that needed a pole vault to enter. Of course it is, Jason snickered. It would have been really funny if you were driving that lowered Honda over there, or maybe that sport bike. Really funny, man. Hop in. I had a little stealth built in for vertically challenged people like you. You know, in case your short little legs don't make it. You're so funny. Jason, sorry, that was a terrible laugh. Jason replied with a half-hearted laugh. He was focused on getting Christina back and stopping whatever it was the entities were up to this time. Just promise me we won't talk about the election. I'm so sick of all that shit. Agreed, me too. Gary motioned for Jason to hop in, which he did with extreme physical effort. The 12-inch lifted one-ton beast of a Chevy was the last thing Jason thought he'd be traveling in. Of course, all the great things that happened and all the opportunities he received came from places he least expected. Sit here. Good coffee. Okay. So the second section I'm going to read. After riding with Gary to Gary's uncle's house in Alabama to help with finding Christina, Jason is witnessing Gary and his uncle arguing about old beliefs because Gary is stalling to tell the story of his abducted girlfriend. Okay, I'm getting on with it. Gary paused for another minute. He took a big swig of the silver bullet, which made his hand red from the condensation. You just pulled these from the icebox? Damn, they're cold. Jason and I might not agree on much politically, but we know what's right and we know what's wrong. That's why I helped him. How do I know you'll help us? Billy Bob wondered of Gary while winking at Jason. He was telling him in no uncertain terms that he had Jason's back and could always be trusted. Finish the story so we can go after whoever did this. Jason winked back at Billy Bob, knowing if they couldn't agree on everything, they can agree on the important things. This meeting was part of letting all the built-up bullshit fade away. Part of that bullshit was the Confederate flag and Civil War regalia. They promoted a time when a whole race of people were pegged as inferior. Now was the time to see if Gary was on the same page. Are you saying you don't trust me? You're my family. This guy is some communist sympathizer who happened to be at the same hospital I was, complaining his woman was taken just like mine, Gary blurted all in one breath. How could his uncle side with somebody who wasn't his family, not his kind, and probably not even his skin color? You're going to take this guy's side over mine? Relax, nephew. Damn, what's your problem? You both came here looking for help because his and your girlfriends were abducted. We're going to figure out why. Are you afraid of him because he believes differently than you? Or might say something you don't like? Well, grow the fuck up, you little baby. This is a global struggle for the goodness of humanity. Have you forgotten what that's like? Do you even know what it means to take care of your fellow man? Billy Bob erupted like his dog was threatened. He hadn't sat down after giving the guys their beers, but he probably couldn't if he tried. Gary jumped up faster than somebody realizing they were holding a winning lottery ticket. Would he have to punch his uncle? You don't even know this guy. He obviously doesn't believe any of this shit. He's different and he's wrong. I don't know why the hell I even brought him here. Jason sat motionless, unable to get a word in edgewise. He didn't understand why Gary felt so threatened all of a sudden. He didn't mention once being threatened by Jason during their 3-day car ride to Alabama. Even when they smoked a joint, he sniped about how their women drove them crazy. Of course, Jason has learned many things during his decade of chasing unknown things into the unknown for unknown reasons with unknown outcomes. Jason's biggest lesson? You can't guess what's coming down the line. You have to pay attention to what's presently in front of you. Gary and Billy Bob were venomously screaming at each other, standing so close their noses were touching. Spit flew out of each other's mouths simultaneously, almost landing on each other. Jason was getting images of baseball managers arguing with umpires. They could be society's umpires, calling balls and strikes to make sure nobody was called out who didn't deserve it. Jason flashed back to Billy Bob, the Mossad, and what started the Jerusalem adventure. It was sprinkling rain as they immersed themselves in Billy Bob's suburban Disneyland. The sky's ominous darkness reflected Jason's shock of seeing somebody he never thought he'd see again. Jason knew not to get involved in family disputes if he wanted to leave with all his teeth. He kicked his shoes off and started making fists with his extra white feet in the plush brown and tan carpet. The screaming was growing more heated, so he went outside to get some fresh air. The Alabama sky was black with storm clouds that were metaphorically and physically forming in front of them. As sunny skies began to poke through, a beautiful rainbow shined bright as the morning sun right in front of Jason. What a sign, he thought. When things looked like they couldn't get any darker, he let go. The rainbow was a symbol that things would always get brighter, but only if he allowed them first. Fully rejuvenated, Jason returned inside the oak door that featured a Make America Great Again sign. Ripping it off and tearing it to shreds was his first thought. Instead, he walked in, making sure he'd do the ripping at a later date. The more pressing issue was pointing out to 2 alpha males that beauty was on the horizon. They just had to recognize it. Are you ladies done catfighting yet? I want to eat some crawfish before you start flinging beer bottles at each other. Follow me outside real quick. I want to show you something, Jason erupted. His inability to compromise was one of the many reasons the country was in dire straits. To break that cycle, he wanted to provide a metaphor to Gary and Billy Bob to put things in perspective. What is it? Tell me, questioned Gary. Why did he let Jason in his car back in California? Did his girlfriend get taken? Was he trying to convince himself the woman he brought to the hospital was actually his girlfriend? Was he simply administering his well-worn self-sabotage? That could be why Jason and he got along right off the bat. They both knew what it's like to tear themselves down. Just come outside and see for yourself. Jason led Gary and Billy Bob onto the front lawn and pointed at the sky. You see that, you assholes? No matter how dark it... I just lost my page for a second. Okay. Give me 1 second here. Sorry. Okay. No matter how dark it gets, no matter how much bullshit you fling at each other, there's always beauty in the world. No matter how much you try to stop collective forward progress, we just have to open our fucking blinded eyes and look. Billy Bob never witnessed Jason with such fury. Was this the passion they needed to finally upend the paradigm that kept them all down? Wow, that's an amazing rainbow, man. So bright and vibrant, Billy Bob admitted. Yeah, woohoo, a beautiful rainbow. Are you sure that isn't the international bat symbol that the gays are taking over? Gary spewed. Because spewing was what he did best. He was pissed at the connection that Jason and his uncle had, which pulled his uncle away from the same old thinking. What the hell is your problem, man? Billy Bob continued to get in the face of his nephew, ready to throw down on the front lawn. Residents on the block started peeking out of their windows. Since the volume of the conversation rose exponentially, Jason thought he should use some of the conflict resolution Christina taught him.
There's some water.
Look, I brought you outside because I wanted to show you beauty comes in all forms, and usually in the way we least expect. I came here to rescue my Christina and stop these goddamn entities from doing whatever they're planning. They want to poison a pipeline, then we'll stop them. They want to put another friendly in the White House to take the country backwards, and we'll stop them. I brought you out here to look at this rainbow. It's something random that only appears for a short time. If we're lucky enough to see it, we can permanently enter it into our memory banks. We can use it to focus our energy towards the places it needs to go. So God damn it, for the last time, look at the rainbow, see how beautiful it is. Realize there are things much more important in life than screaming at somebody who's always been there for you. Now let's go back inside and see what we can do about the goddamn government. So the last section I'm going to read